Guys, what's up? Welcome back here to another episode of The Fishing Teacher, and man, I really appreciate you guys making some time to check the video out today. Always grateful for that. Guys, I'm going to give you some tips and advice on fishing main lake points in the winter time of the year. Sort of what I want to try to do in this video is to sort of give you an understanding about how fish use main lake points and maybe some approaches, because they're good all year long, but especially in the months of like December and January and February, they work really good. And also, guys, before we get started, just a big thank you to everybody out there that's been using my Tackle Warehouse link that I put in the description of every video. If you guys use that link, if you need to order any fishing equipment, that's a great way to support the channel. Every time you buy something off that link, the channel gets a small percentage of the commission on that, so it's much appreciated with that. Okay, guys, main lake points in the winter time of the year. Let's sort of go over them a little bit. Now, first thing that you got to understand about a main lake point in the wintertime, there's a couple different variables to that. As far as the techniques that you use and how the fish use those points, it has a lot to do, well, it has everything to do with the water clarity. Water clarity will dictate the technique and also the depth that the fish use on those particular points. Now, there's two different scenarios. You have two different water clarities. If you have off-colored water in the lake you're fishing, let's say, for example, if the water visibility is, say, 3 feet or less, which I consider sort of off-colored in the wintertime, you're basically going to have a shallower population of fish that live on those points, that live on the bottom. So they're going to be, you know, for the most part, in anywhere between, say, 5 to maybe at the very most 20 foot of water in those conditions there, but they hug on the bottom. And when you have those conditions, a little bit more off-colored water, a lot of times the fish are a little bit more difficult to catch because bass and cold water and dirty water don't mix. So most of the time you just sort of have to be prepared for the fact that it's not going to be that great, although you can still catch some fish. Now, if you're dealing with water visibilities of less than 3 feet and the coldest temperatures that you have of the year in the wintertime, there's two really good techniques that you need to fish. Number one is a crankbait. Crankbait is going to be pretty effective. I prefer some type of a crawdad pattern like a wigglewort or a rock crawler or that Megabass Z3 crankbait, something along those lines. There's always going to be some fish to be caught on a crankbait. If the water visibility is sort of like between 2 to 3 feet, you can still catch them on a jerkbait. But those fish that you catch on a jerkbait on those type of points are going to come off the bottom. So you want to try to fish a little bit shallower, like in less than 7 or 8 foot of water. And then finally, a dragging a football head jig can be really good in anywhere between, say, 10 to 20 foot of water. Now, the other scenario that you're going to have is a clear water main lake point environment. Now, this is what I really prefer because there's a lot more options. If you have water visibilities that are pretty clear, like water visibilities that are 4 foot or more, you're going to have two distinct populations of fish on the same points. You're going to have some fish that will use the bottom on them, just like they did on the more off-colored points. Man, the sun is really bright here in my face, guys, right now. So you're going to have some fish that are, you know, on the bottom, like, you know, 5 to 15 foot of water, maybe 20 foot of water. And then you're maybe even deeper. They could even be down to 30 foot if the water's really, really clear. And then you're going to have a population of bass that are suspended deeper out off those point ends and sides. So let's say, for example, you have a lake that's got 5 foot of clarity, visibility in it. The way that you want to approach it, the first thing that I do is if I have some type of overcast or wind, I always go to either a jerkbait or a small swim bait. And I try to put the boat like in 15 to 25 foot of water and just sort of fan cast towards the bank and try to target that 5 to, you know, anywhere between 5 to 15 foot of water visibility out there. Now, on the other hand, what happens with that, if the water is real clear like that, you're also going to have those fish that are out there in deep water suspended. So the next thing I like to do is to get my boat out there in 25 to 40 foot of water, and I start fan casting A-rigs, jerk baits, little swim baits out in and around off that deeper water trying to catch suspended bass. Now, the depth that I fish is, a lot of it depends on the activity that I'm seeing on my electronics. I usually take my 2D sonar and I'll scan around off those points a little bit deeper. And if I see shad or fish or something at a certain depth zone, that's the depth zone I sort of try to target. So let's say, for example, I'm out in 45, 50 foot of water and I start noticing shad suspended 15 or 20 foot down, then I'll just count my little swim bait down, or the A-rig, down to the depth and try to run it through that depth zone. But anyway, guys, that's the two main approaches I use. Jigging spoons can also be good on those clear water points. You can't go wrong with it. If you do nothing, guys, but fish main lake points in the wintertime, you're going to catch some bass. There's no doubt. It's just a matter of, you may have to fish 15 or 20 points and you may not catch any on 10 or 12 of them, but you may catch fish on 3 or 4 of them. But they, in my opinion, they are the number one fish catching structures for the winter months, simply because, you know, they offer, you know, deep water access. There's a lot of diversity and feeding opportunities for the fish, and they're just a good all-around structure for them. So anyway, hope it helps out. We'll talk later.